5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to our Abu Dhabi Tour preview. I'm delighted to be joined by Brian Smith. Brian, thank you for coming on tonight.
No worries. It's nice to talk to a fellow jock.
I
Can I say jock? Is that not appropriate?
I think we're allowed to. I think we're allowed to. Nobody else is allowed to. We're going to have to promise to tone down the accents tonight to make sure everybody can hear us.
So I need my posh voice on my commentary voice.
You certainly do. And two West Coasters on YouTube, never good for anybody else to understand. We will begin by looking at the sprinters. Obviously, Abu Dhabi Tour has moved date. Only 4 months ago we were here, and now we're back. So, first of all, what do you think, Brian, about the change of date?
Well, it's a completely different race now. With it being in October, the first 2 years, it was just a kind of replacement for the Tour of Beijing. And everybody knows that the Tour of Beijing, nobody really wanted to go. Nobody wanted to kind of really race. And okay, there's been good winners, some good sprint stages. You know, Viviani's won a couple of stages, Cav's won a couple of stages. But looking at the fields, it's absolutely phenomenal. I think this race, okay, it's gone to World Tour. But I think looking at the GC contenders and the sprinters, this has the best field since the start of the year. Kito's never been before. He's never won a stage. But just look at his results in, Dubai Tour. And I think he's going to be obviously difficult to beat. But this has got a first-class field from what I see.
It's unusual for them to kind of face off so early in the season. The big three sprinters, sometimes you don't actually see them go head-to-head to the Tour. So we've got Kito, we've got Greipel, we've got Cavendish. Does it mean, obviously it doesn't mean that kind of Tour de France victory, but psychologically, does it mean something for all three of them to beat the others?
Kito, I think, yes, it means something this year because he got beaten so much in the Tour de France last year by Cavendish. Cavendish had a monkey in his back because until the Tour de France last year, he was getting beaten by Kito, until the Tour de France last year. So I think that monkey's off his back. So Cav is a bit more relaxed about it all. And with managing him last year, I've said to him right from the start of the season, I don't really care about Dubai Tour or any of these other races. It's all about the Tour de France. And I wanted to see him back winning not just one stage, but multiple stages. And I believed he could do that because you don't just go away from doing it in the past. So he came back, so the confidence is up. We've already seen him try in the Dubai Tour. And he came away empty-handed. He went to Algarve, I think, just for training purposes. Came away with nothing. He never really kind of tried, never really put himself about. And in fact, the first sprint in Algarve was the best place I've ever seen him. I think he was like third or fourth wheel in the first sprint stage, but then just swung over. So as a leader person, he knows his way around the peloton. I think being an ambassador for this Abu Dhabi Tour, I think after winning a couple of stages, he'll want to come back, and I think he'll want to try and win. We saw him in Dubai Tour. If he had a little bit more luck, he might have won, because the stage that both Kito and Cavendish were kind of pushed back, and Kito came and won, and he went to the left-hand side and Cavendish went to the right-hand side. There was no room. I think the overhead camera shows that they were both as fast as each other. So I think with the 3 sprint stages, we're going to see some more battles. I think it'll be a lot closer, but I still think Kito will be dominant.
What about that man Greipel? Good in the Algarve, and
David, he's a strong sprinter. He get beaten well beaten by Gaviria in the first stage. And then in that uphill finish, look, I don't know. I like Greipel.
The first stage when Gaviria kind of bossed him, but he seemed to get his mojo back later on in the race. What did you think of him?
I think Grippo maybe not have the top end speed that he maybe had in the past, but he's certainly strong. What he's lost in speed, he's made up in his strength. In the first stage, he was easily beaten by Gaviria. Okay, that slight jink to the left-hand side. You know, if Grippo was in that position, he would have done exactly the same thing. It's just instinct. You do these things when you sense someone's coming up. You just move slightly. The stage that he won so close with Degenkolb, slightly uphill, where he came from on that last corner was absolutely unbelievable. The strength in the man, and that's why they call him the gorilla, is unbelievable. And you know, I like Andre Grippo. I like him a lot, but I just don't think he's as fast as Kittel or Cavendish at the top end speed.
And his sprint train here isn't the normal kind of big lotto train that we've seen in the past. He's got, I think it's Lars Bak, Adam Hansen, Sean DeBee, so it's not anywhere near the level of Eisel, Renshaw, Van Rensburg. You've got to imagine he's going to be starting further behind than he's used to.
Look, it's the same. You look at the Dubai Tour and you see Mark Cavendish. He's always looking for Grippo. He looks at his sprint and he's always positioned with Grippo. I think sometimes that's a mistake because Grippo pushes a lot of air. He's a big guy, and Cavendish reckons that because he's so small, he can get into that slipstream and catapult round him. But very few people can come round Marcel Kittel when he's full gas. And I think Mark Cavendish should take it more from the front, because reverse it, and you've got a small package of Cavendish and a big package of Kittel. Kittel's not getting as much draft from Cavendish, and I just think that kind of monkey on Cav's back was blown away at the Tour de France this year. But I think Cav needs to, and I think that's why we never saw him do too much in Algarve, because he was staying safe. But I think he needs to come up with a win in one of these three stages in Abu Dhabi to just get that confidence back.
Looking further afield, I suppose Caleb Ewan is the one that really sticks out as the rider who could potentially challenge the big three. Had a sensational Tour Down Under. What do you think about him?
I think he's phenomenal. That position he gets in his bike, how fast he is, he's a class act. The thing I worry about is, as you said, David, he was absolutely flying in the Tour Down Under. It's done a world of confidence for him. But you've got to remember what his goals are for this year. And the trouble with a lot of the Aussies, they all want to race well in January in the Tour Down Under, and they've got their nationals. But they really have to put the brakes on for about a month before, and the transition, I know we're not back to Europe, but we're halfway, but that transition back to Europe, that's what a lot of the Aussies like. They like going to the Middle East and then to Europe. But I think he was absolutely flying, that he has to put the brakes on a little bit if he wants to have a whole season. And I think Orica will want a whole season out Caleb Ewan and not see him kind of wither out in kind of August. So I've got a question mark over him, what sort of form he'll be in, because he was absolutely flying a few weeks ago.
They actually look like they've got the best train. Kluge, who is going to be a great signing, no doubt. Mezgec is in there as well. Those two are really, really fast. Looking afield, Kittel, it's not his normal kind of longer train. Sabatini's here, who he loves riding with. Cavendish has got a good train, I've touched on that, but Orica seem, and they won't have the pressure of riding all day on the front like the big teams will, and they're quite good at just stealing in with 2k to go and hijacking it. I've got the same concerns as you. He clearly has rested after the Tour Down Under. How he's going to be first race back is going to be, we'll just have to wait and see. Viviani, disappointing in Dubai Tour, but then he came up with a second place on the final stage. He's got the speed to contend for stages.
Viviani is another rider that you never discount him. If you heard some of my commentary during Dubai Tour, you never discount him. As soon as you discount him, he comes up, pops up and wins a stage. He's maybe not, the Sky are not geared up around lead-out trains. They've lost like Andy Fenn, Ben Swift, so he's he's had to find his own way, and sometimes it's hit and miss when you have to find your own way. But Viviani's like that. He's done it for years. He does it on the track. He can find his own way, but like I say, it's hit and miss. He'll pop up with that good position in the last kilometre and pop up with that good result. The best thing he's good at is he has got so much top-end speed in the last 50 metres. All Viviani does, he's a crafty sprinter, like most Italian sprinters are. He follows, and then that last 50 metres, bang, he's got that speed when everybody's, maxed out. Never write him off. He's won 2 stages of this race before, albeit a totally different race at a totally different time of year. But Viviani has got the craft. I think he was suffering a little bit in Dubai Tour after that long travel to San Juan in Argentina.
One that I do like, you've touched on Italian sprinters, is lots of Italian sprinters here, is Matteo Pellucci. Lost his way last season at IAM, moved over to Bora. He'll be led out by Selig, who is just a very strong individual. He's already posted some good results in Mallorca. Do you think Pellucci might be returning to the top table?
Pellucci, as you say, was amazing before. He was so fast, so good. He kind of lost his way a little bit, and he has had a couple of top 6 places in Mallorca. Selig, as you say, was up there in Almeria as well, of his own right. So I think Bora have been practicing. They've got a lot of good sprinters. They've been doing a lot with I think Christian Palmer in Mallorca, and I think Pellucci looks as if he's getting back to his best. Look, the difference between being a sprinter and being a top sprinter is not just about power, it's about confidence. And all Pellucci needs is that wee bit of confidence. He runs top 3 in the first stage, he could possibly win a stage in Abu Dhabi.
I think he lost a bit of shape as well last season. I don't know if it was being a bit too cosy with the directors at IAM. He certainly seemed to put on some weight.
Yes.
But he seems to have kind of a new change, obviously, new bosses, maybe more demanding of him is what he needs. The other one, Bonifacio.
Yeah, he's not a big, powerful sprinter. He's one of these kind of slimmer Italian type sprinters, a wee bit like Viviani. He's not big, but he's very fast, and I can't see him winning a stage of the Dubai Tour, but I can see him run top 3, maybe once, maybe twice, but it's going to be very difficult, and that's why I've put him in the kind of second. I like him. He's very much like Viviani, and that's why he's in the same bracket. Caleb Ewan, I just slipped into, because I'm only allowed 3 picks, I slipped him down, one from the big 3, Cavendish, Gripe and Kittel, purely because I think he's taken a bit of a rest and then he's coming back. So, but I like Bonifacio. Look, I grew up with a lot of Italian sprinters, and I love how they don't need the big lead out trains. They can ride themselves in the sprint, and Bonifacio is that sort of person. He doesn't have the big lead out, but he is quick.
And the other one I'd throw in is Minali, who a new name for a lot of fans out there. Podiumed in the final stage of the Dubai Tour, looks big, strong, keen. I like the fact he actually improved every stage in the Dubai Tour until finishing 3rd. I think Astana seemed to have pulled out a good signing with him.
Well, he is class act, just like his father was. I raced with his father when he was with Guy Wyss, another fast finisher, and it breeds in the family. He got himself in the right place in the Dubai Tour, courtesy of that right hand corner just before the finish. On these type of finishes, I'm not too sure he's got the same horsepower as the other sprinters, because you've got to remember the finishes here in Abu Dhabi are pretty much big roads, straight finishes. I think Minali and maybe some of the other sprinters like Bonifacio and Viviani thrive a little bit better off a bit more technical finish.
Right.
Get themselves in a position, they get themselves in the top 6, and definitely they've got speed to do that.
Sprinters, so they've got the 3 stages, and then we've got the big mountain stage itself. A nice, long, hard climb. You commentated on the race, I think it was 2 years ago in the first edition. What do you remember of the climb?
Well, I remember it not being that entertaining because it was big roads and, about 3-4 lanes wide, and it's long. It's about 11 kilometres. It pitches up about 8-9%, but I think about 3 kilometres to go. There's a bit of a kick up to about 11%, and then the last kilometre isn't too bad. And when I remember it from 2 years ago, there was a bit of a dodgy corner in towards the finish. Look, you cannot compare 2 years ago and last year's Abu Dhabi Tour because there's different goals. It's a World Tour event. It's a different part of the year. I don't think many of the riders were going full gas in October. I think this is a new era, and people might think 3 flat stages, or 2 road stages, and a circuit race round a Formula One track, which to me is not entertaining. And I know I'm going to be commentating on it, but to me this isn't entertaining features. And I remember the first stage in 2015 when they cut it short because it was just too warm. Okay, the temperatures aren't as warm as it was 2 years ago. And then you've got fairly flattish, undulating until about 15 k's to go in the mountain stage, where it kicks up and then it goes up the climb of 11 kilometres. So it's not a real mountain stage. There's a lot of GC contenders like hills beforehand. So this is going to throw up a different scenario. It's the punchier riders, it's attacking type riders, and I don't know if many people listening are riders. It's a whole different ball game putting 3 or 4 calls into a stage, or 4 mountains on a stage, than just having flat and then up a mountain, because some of the climbers find it difficult to get the rhythm.
So that could lead to somebody who neither of us have actually got on our list, Julian Alaphilippe.
I had Alaphilippe, and he was one of my contenders. But I think his form looks okay. He's looking towards the classics, which he obviously is training for. And I think the climb may be a wee bit too long, and the quality of riders we've got with Quintana, Ray Costa's on some good form, and they're under pressure, I think, to deliver something, because obviously the Bahrain Merida team, it's in the Middle East, so I think they'll be under a little pressure. But Contador and Valverde, their fight in Ruta del Sol was unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. I loved watching it. Contador looks as if he's got some gas, and I'm thinking it's somebody like that, it's an attacking type of rider that is going to win that stage, because the overall is going to be decided in that mountain. When I say mountain, that medium mountain, that's the overall, and then there's 3 sprint stages. So in my view, there's 2 road stages, a medium mountain stage, and a criterium.
What about that man Quintana then? Valenciana, Queen Stage, brutal double-digit climb at 15-16%, danced away. Kudus could stay with him for about, I think it was about a kilometre and a half, and then eventually he's put about a minute into everybody. Comes here, starts as a favourite, I think. Contador obviously is fresh from second place, just behind Valverde. You mentioned that, a brilliant battle, although Trek seemed to be saying he's only here for kilometres in the legs.
Yeah, and to help Balka Mollema, which, okay, he'd have won in San Juan. It wasn't up against the best guys. It was a good few weeks ago. Looking at the form of Contador, I think, okay, Contador's Spanish, Ruta del Sol's a home race for him. I still think there's a lot of pressure on these guys, because it's a World Tour race, and Trek would love to get some good points, and all the teams would love to get some good points on the boards. Quintana is here to win, but you got to remember, we saw in Dubai Tour with the wind blowing, we go out into the desert before we got this climb. There's a lot of kilometres. If the wind blows, the race could split up. you don't know. Some of these climbers might not get to this climb. We're looking on it as the whole bunch get to the bottom of the climb, and they're the best climbers: Quintana, Contador, and Costa. Right? Kudus, he'll be there. He's not getting the biggest support ever, but Nibali, he's another punchy rider. It's showed a little bit of form in Argentina. But I think Astana, they always like to do well. And then you've got his nemesis, Aru, who showed good form with finishing, third in Oman. So I've got down in 1 star Hissink, Mollema and Bardet. Bardet was just missing a little bit in Oman. I don't think he's too worried about these races. But I think Mollema and Contador could work very well together. Hissink, look, I tried to sign Hissink 3 years ago for MTN Quebecer. And I spoke to his manager and I said, what Hissink needs to do is forget about GCE, forget about it and go for stage wins. That's where you see your extra motivation. And then I read something in the press saying, oh, I've got extra motivation, I'm just going for stages, I'm not going for GCE. That's 3 years ago I said that to his manager. And I think Hissink will probably be good. He showed decent enough form in Tour Down Under. And I think he could be good here. Because what I like to see is aggressive riding, not conserving, not looking for a top 10, not finishing 7th, 8th, 9th. I don't care if you finish 15th or 20th. Try and win. And I think Hissink is maybe a different mentality that he could be there and thereabouts.
What about his teammate Kruijswijk?
I think Kruijswijk on a more lumpier day because he's more of maybe a bit of a diesel. He's always there, he's always strong, but I think Hissink will be riding a bit more aggressively than Kruijswijk. Kruijswijk will be a bit more conservingly, and I think that having just only one climb in the race, it doesn't suit some riders, it suits other riders.
And then the big dilemma is what type of Nibali are we going to get? You just never know when it's outside the Grand Tours if he's going to be flying, if he's going to be out the back door. I've got a feeling he might be flying this time round. Just down from altitude training, I think he's probably going to be wanting to put on a show.
Well, he showed well enough in San Juan, with showboating a wee bit, getting in the breakaway. And I think, like you, that Nibali, this is a new team. Bahrain's in the Middle East, they want to show to his sponsors, a bit of pressure on. And I think we'll see him attacking like he did in Oman, a couple of years ago, where, he's up in there and thereabouts. So I think that's why I've got him 2 stars. I think Nibali will be attacking, and he's that sort of punchy. Nibali, Contador, I think if they get together and have a ding-dong up this climb, then it's going to be fun. One
name I've got that you don't have, although you dropped him out after I changed the rules, was TJ Van Garderen. He gets a lot of stick, I think unfairly. I know he falters in that third week of a Grand Tour, but give him a week-long stage race and he is an outstanding rider. I think this is the type of race he could go well in. He usually starts the season strongly. He can cope with the heat. And I think this should be a good race for him. You mentioned potential crosswinds. Obviously, he rides for BMC, so you would imagine he'll be well protected. I've got a feeling that Van Garderen could be going to do something, and well supported. He's got Nico Roach and Sammy Sanchez with him.
Right. When I was looking at the stat list, Van Garderen hasn't raced since the Vuelta last year.
Yeah.
Even Kreuziger hasn't raced, and he's another kind of punchy rider that could possibly do well. Riding with a new team might have extra motivation, but pretty much on his own. Because Caleb Ewan takes a lot of the team support away. Tom Dumoulin is another. These guys have been. We don't know. They've not raced this year yet, so that's why to me they're kind of question marks. Van Garderen can go well, but I think the guys that have had a race already in the legs, I think will be that bit sharper. And okay, Van Garderen, if there was a couple of mountain stages or there's a few mountains on the way, they might be okay. But throwing everybody in to that kind of flattish stage with a hill at the ends, it's a totally different race altogether.
One more name I'll throw at you, Ilnur Zakarin.
Yes, quality. I don't think shown the form this year yet. I think there was where did he finish? About 20th.
I think he's only raced in Valenciana, and he wasn't particularly great. Yeah, he wasn't brilliant there.
Yeah, he wasn't brilliant, and it wasn't that long ago. I don't think he's quite got the form yet, Zakarin. But I think he's going to be great this year. But I don't think at the moment he's shown the form. It's the same with Micah. New team, new motivation. He showed well enough in Mallorca, but Rafa Micah, to me, is that sort of risk taker that will go out on this climb and just go hell for leather and try and win it. And he's very capable of winning it. And while others are kind of looking at each other, so there are some opportunists out there, but I just don't think these guys are showing enough form, because if Movistar go there and Movistar want to win, and as you say rightly so, Quintana is the favourite. The UCI rankings say that Movistar are the number one team, and I know that the UNZU owners of the team want to keep that title, and they want to rack up the points. So they want as many points from Quintana as possible, so they want to win the race.
You've got Quintana, Contador, Rui Costa as your 3 stars. I've got Quintana, Nibali and Bardet as my 3 stars. You talked about Bardet. He wasn't quite there, and Oman crashed on that final stage thanks to the impromptu river party across the road. After what a fantastic tour he had, I think he's going to come here and look at Quintana, Nibali, Contador and think, I want to show up. I want to go toe-to-toe and see what I've got against these big guys.
I like Bardet. I like the way he races. When he gets close to the GC, we don't see the best of Bardet because he races conservatively. A couple of years ago in the Tour de France, when he won his first stage, I just like the way he races. And he's one of these riders that I've got respect for, because he doesn't really care about who you are, what you've done. He just goes out there and races. And anybody that's followed any of my career and the teams that I've built, all I do is instill confidence into riders and allow them to race the way they want to race. And I think allowing Bardet to race the way he wants to race, he's a class act.
If you had to put your money where your mouth is, Brian, who's going to walk away with the title?
Well, I have to go with one of my top 3 with the title. And I have to say, on this type of climb, one climb, you've got to remember it's just one climb. It's not overly steep. I would think that Costa and Quintana. I'll say Contador.
Good, I'll say Quintana then. It leaves the narrow pick free for me. Now that I've got you here, I can't let you go without asking about a certain Steve Cummings. You mentioned there some teams that you've built over the past. You signed Cummings a couple of years back. Did you think what he went on to do you think he was capable of doing that? I think that's probably a daft question. You're going to say yes, but most of us watching it, absolutely amazed at what he was able to do over the last couple of seasons. What type of rider is he? What type of guy is he?
I think he's easy, laid back. The biggest thing, to answer that question, you have to ask him, because only he knows what I told him, and I told him exactly what he can do. And in the Tour de France, in the first year, I had to hold him back for 10 days. I said, look, just look after yourself for 10 days. He never did anything, bottle duties, any teamwork, no, nothing at all. And I could see him getting frustrated because he wanted to race. So I kind of held him back, looking after him. And then we picked 2 or 3 days, especially 2 days where he had to go. And I said in the morning that I don't care how many are in the breakaway, as long as Steve is there, that's the goal. And the stage he won up in Monday, there's 24 riders in front and only him there. And I knew he had a chance. And most people would have thought 1 in 24, they've got no chance. The thing is, Steve is a class bike rider. He's always been a classy bike rider. But you have to get to know him first, and he doesn't fit into every team because you have a job, you have teamwork to do, and you cannot be a loner in a team. If you're a loner in a team, you lose your contract. You don't do your teamwork, nobody helps you. But having to explain to the other riders, that's what Steve's here for. He's here to win a stage. And I told, when I took on that job at MTN Quebec, my job, my goal I set myself was to get into the Tour de France and to win a stage. And I thought either Boasson Hagen or Steve were the best options for that. So we set ourselves at high goals. And it was actually in the Tour of Turkey a couple of years ago when I was there, and Cav was moaning about one of the sprinters, Yusuf Regigi, trying to push past him to beat him. And I said to Cav, you've got to understand that these guys phoning home to Algeria to tell them to beat Mark Cavendish in the stage, it's motivation for them. I said, this will all change when you join us next year. And he kind of looked with a surprise. He said, we should talk. And I said, yeah, of course we should talk. So that was the beginning. That was the first seat of Cav coming to the team. And I say exactly what I said to Cav, that I said to Boasson Hagen, I said to Steve, look, this team, this is your team. It's not, we're here to support you. Too many bike teams, pro teams, management are, this is how you do it. We're not going to take no for an answer. You do this, you do that, and it's all structured. Well, the psychology behind the teams that I get involved with is, this is the riders' teams. The team belongs to you. It's about your results, what you guys want to do. You tell us how to help you, and we'll give you 100%, right? So there has to be some compromises. So when you're not sprinting or when you're giving up, who you're letting down? You're not letting us down, you're letting yourself down. And so the biggest motivation in an individual is your own self-esteem, your own confidence. Nobody rides a bike for someone else. When people say they win races, they do things, they do it for themselves only. Do you think Mark Cavendish thinks afterwards and thanks his teammates, and people that win thanks his team and thanks for the support? But at that time, they're making that effort, making that sprint. Who are they doing it for? Themselves. So if they do not do anything, then the only person they're letting down is themselves, and that's the biggest motivation. Because no matter what you do, if you tell people to do things and they don't want to do it, then they'll never do it. So with Steve Cummings, you sit down with him, you get to know him. It's the same when Roger Hammond came to the team, and we were in Tirreno last year. And he said it right. When you come with Steve in a team, you've got a 7-man team in Steve. That's it, 7-man team in Steve. And Steve will sit at the back when he's been told to get to the front. You can either get frustrated with it all or work with him. Because I'll tell you what, Steve is an artist. He'll come up with some brilliant things when you're least expecting it. And he won the stage in Tirreno last year. And it was just like, oh, unbelievable. So I know you take the risk having Steve in the team, but when he comes up with the goods, he comes up with the goods. And that stage he won, like when I hear Alain Galopin of our rival team tell me in the Dauphiné last year, when Tony Galopin, his nephew, was in the breakaway, and Tony Galopin told him that he couldn't, in the undulating part before he attacked, he couldn't even hold his wheel. And when Steve won that stage and rode solo for about 50 kilometres, won the stage, he said, in the last decade, that's the best stage win I've ever seen of any race.
He has been just a phenomenal signing. I mean, and he's one of those guys that fans really take to. And now, even though he's marked last season, you know, as soon as he goes in a break, other riders are thinking, I'm not going to let you away from me. They just can't.
Cameron Mayer done it in the Vuelta the year before, and they marked themselves both out of it. And I think it was, I forget who won the stage, it might have been Nelson Oliveira or something like that. And they marked themselves, and they both got in a breakaway, and they're both class acts. So that's why I signed Cameron Mayer. So they're both, they're both very similar. Cameron Mayer is very much like Steve Cummings. He can get himself in a breakaway and he can go long. With Steve, look, Steve is the sort of person. I went on holiday last year to the Outer Hebrides, some wild camping. I say wild camping in a luxury camper, but I went wild camping and I was posting some pictures up and things like that. Steve loves that sort of stuff. He loves getting away from it all. He loves his family life. He's just a normal, down-to-earth guy that likes getting with nature and just no thrills and spills. You know, he's that sort of person. So you thrust him into the Tour de France and the limelight and the interviews. He doesn't thrive in any of that. Just leave him to himself. Let him get on with it. And in the Tour of Britain last year, I had to say to him the last stage, Steve, enjoy yourself. Because he stepped up in the PR, you know, in this country. Everybody knows who Steve Cummings is. Can he replicate what he did last year or the year before? This year, he's got one goal in mind, and that's a major classic. And I think he can do it. He's not going to tell anybody what that classic is. That's the sort of person he is. He's just a down-to-earth family man that is just an artist on a bike, but it has to be under his terms and under nobody else's terms.
I found it fascinating that when I had J. Robert Thompson on, he was saying that the signing of Cavendish breathed new life into his career. The fact he was riding for such an iconic rider, I presume.
Well, Jay was actually riding on the front that same Tour of Turkey. He was riding at the front. I think it might have been for Christian Sparagli or something like that. So he was riding on the front. And Cav turned round to me in the hell and said, "Who's that strong mother?" And he didn't have a clue who he was. He was just this African guy. But I saw Jay about 2 or 3 years ago in Depana when he was up there and in the breakaway and riding well, riding strong. Look, there is definitely talent. You know, Mohamed Kudus is showing some good form. There's some big talent. The biggest thing, like, is we are Scots. When you think of, you know, where I came from, you know, when you said you're going to be a pro bike rider and riding the continent, they just laughed at you. And it's the same wherever you come from. You know, the population size in Eritrea is just about 6 million, and Scotland is 4.7. And I'll stand in front of these Eritreans and say, "Look, I know how you feel. Okay, I'm not black, and I don't come from, kind of poverty like these guys. But I kept on being told, that's not possible, you're not going to do it. You're not going to do it." So all I did is support these guys, help them, and encourage them to express themselves in races. And I saw that in Daniel Tekle-Haymanot, where the tactic of the day was to get him in the breakaway. Okay, the first goal was done to get him in the breakaway, but he had to win 3 King of the Mountains to take that King of the Mountains jersey, and he had to beat Kenneth Van Bilsen, who's quite quick, and Daniel Tekle-Haymanot is not known for his sprinting. But it's winning that, setting these small goals. When you set the small goals, getting the breakaway, win the first sprints, and then it was just on a crest of a wave, and the rest is history. So there are definite huge talents in Africa. And I hope they'll, Louis Meintjes is another one. Louis Meintjes is another top rider riding Abu Dhabi Tour. But I just don't think that one mountain is going to be enough for him.
Brilliant insights, Brian. Great to hear about your times at MTN Quebec Dimension Data. Such a success. And I'm determined to try and find out what classic Steve Cummings is going for.
I'm sworn to secrecy.
You mentioned you're commentating on the race for Eurosport, yeah?
Yes, I'm going to be doing Abu Dhabi, then I'm back from Abu Dhabi, and then I'm doing Strada Bianchi and Tirreno, so I'm looking forward to them.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for taking your time out to come on tonight and enjoy the race.
Very well, thank you.